Hello, everybody. Welcome. This is at an odd time to do the little book club moment, but I figured that it was also the best time to do this little book club moment. I also was deep in my errand from Booked and Busy bag because I definitely did not finish my reread of the final revival of OPAL and NEV until like 30 minutes ago, roughly. Not even 30, it was like 45 minutes ago. I spent today listening to the audiobook, which people have recommended because it is a full cast narration. Still don't think I'm sold on the idea of full cast narrations at all. So that was something I was suffering with. But I don't think I would have finished this today if I hadn't listened to the audio. It was just like the story itself is just as good the second time. And I feel like it was even more satisfying in some ways, given the I don't want to call them twists and turns. I guess they're kind of twists and turns, but given where the story goes, I guess I was really happy with this as a reread. It made me happy to have experience, and I did give it another 5 out of 5 stars. Still don't think that Neville deserve rights. Like, that man, garbage, not a good person. It's not even that I think he's like not a good person. It's just that I don't see the appeal of him as an artist. And I definitely did not see the appeal of him as a character, because even though I went into it this time knowing things about Mr. Neville, hello, um, w- hello, even though I went in knowing things about Neville, I was still trying to understand like what was our girl Opal seeing in him, because even at the jump when he's talking about himself and his little sad little life that he had, and his little mama trying to like live vicariously through him, it was just giving pitiful existence. Yes, like it was like even at the beginning and like when you're not supposed to know anything about him, I was like, this is just like giving pitiful. And then how he was talking about how he really just wanted to he wanted to like he wanted to be a musician, but he wasn't sure. And so then he was at university and he was trying to study. I was just like, okay, congratulations, sir. I still think you're boring. Still don't care about you. And I think that the setup for where Neville's story went is not a surprise upon reread, because the book takes so long giving us Opal's life. Like there is so many layers and complexities that we get to see about Opal. But Nev is very, this is where he was born, this is how he was raised, then he went to university, then he was like a struggling musician, and he did, some like bullshitty stuff off on the side, and then he met Opal, and like that's where like the story really takes off. And so I think that when you're reading it, like when you are like, okay, like Nev is a bit player, um so you love to see it, I guess. But at the same time it's kind of like clearly this man gonna do something raggedy, and he do, because Nev is just a raggedy man who has no no sense of anything. I will say that there was, I hesitate to call it an error, but there's a definite error in the book, because it's supposed to be set in 2016. And at the end of the book, when they're at the revival concert, she talks to a girl, and in the like description of the thing that's supposed to be from a conversation she had in 2016, it references 2020. And so for like the last 50 pages of the book, I was just like, but that doesn't happen until 2020. I'm very confused. I don't understand, like, how was so, like, were you actually talking to, like, a 14-year-old child, or were you not talking to a 14? It was weird. It was weird. So, like, that was, like, the only I hesitate to call it an issue, but I guess I already have. It's the only issue that I had with the book. Everything else I still enjoyed. I do think that I would have loved to get more from Pearl because I will say, like, that was the only character I liked listening to the audio for. You really want to read this book, but you can't read books about musicians. I feel like this works because is it about a musician? Kind of. But I don't think it's about. It's. I feel like it straddles the line. It definitely straddles a line where it's very clearly about a musician because Opal is a musician and Nev is a musician, and the narrator, Sunny, her trying to find what happened to her father, who was also a musician, is very much the center of the book. But I feel like I don't know. I feel like there is a broader potential appeal. But I get that. I can't say that I love books about musicians because I've only read Final Revival and Daisy Jones, and I feel like this is better. In some ways, this feels like a it feels like a response, not so much to Daisy Jones, but it feels more like a response to Seven Husbands, in my opinion, because I feel like Sunny gets to be a fully realized character here in a way that Monique does not get to be a fully realized character in The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, even though the book could not exist without Monique. But I'm not going to go on that rant today. Reading books about musicians is a hard one for you, but it was worth it. Also, the audiobook was full cast, and yeah, like I said, like I don't think that full cast narrations are a selling point for me. And I used to think that I really liked Bonnie Turpin as an audiobook narrator because I really enjoyed listening to what does she do? She does the Children of Blood and Bone audiobooks, like the Legacy of Orisha series. I really enjoyed those. And she does like a bit in They Both Die at the End as some of like the alternative chapters, but there's something about her reading adult that I just didn't care for, and I really did not care for her Opal. So that like there were some actors, voice people in the audiobook that I really liked. Like I really liked Pearl. Her husband was fine sometime. Bobby Hayes, like the one that dies of cancer, I thought he was interesting, but I was also just kind of like, you're supposed to be dying of cancer, and she's recording these conversations on your deathbed, and the person they had talking was like maybe 35 years old and could easily go run a marathon. So I was just like, this isn't archival. Like, we don't have like anybody in their like 50s. There's no like audio narrators out here in like 66 or something. Like, we could get some fake wheezing in here because you have Neville Chamberlain or whatever his last name was supposed to be, Charles maybe. You have Charles out here like chuckling, so we can't get like a wheeze or two. Like, why? Why am I listening to this very healthy person who's supposed to be dying of like throat cancer? You're talking about like this man is literally on his deathbed and is only lucid for a couple of hours a day. But sure. And then like there were times like during the editor's note portion where it was supposed to be that's what they needed to do, but very clearly did not happen with this audiobook production. But that's fine. Like again, like that's fine. When it's just like one narrator, I feel like I wouldn't have even asked, hello Monet, I know you've read this in the past. Like if it was just like a singular narrator, I wouldn't have even cared that Bobby Hayes sounded like a normal, regular, healthy person. But it's like you guys put in a full cast. Would have liked to see some wheezing, would have liked to get somebody who didn't sound like they were about to go run a marathon as soon as they finished their recording session for the day. As for Opal, I also feel upon reread that the book really only scratches the surface with her and an examination of her. And I know that part of that is because Sunny herself, like our narrator, is very hesitant to push Opal into like these actual meaningful conversations until like halfway through the book. Like until Sunny realizes that Nev is a raggedy little bitch boy and needs to be he needs some consequences to his life. I feel like after that switch, we kind of get to see her in a more, I don't want to say like generous gaze, but like we get to see Opal in like the more complex version of who she is and what she had to offer. But even then, I'm just like, it's a little too late because at that point, Opal is floundering. Like, there's very little in the book about her sad little pitiful career that she had after Opal and Nev broke up. Like when she was sitting in Paris, I said, "This is sad." It was giving. This is mean. This is mean. But I recently was watching Inventing Anna on Netflix, and there's a sequence where Miss Anna Delvey couldn't pay for the little Moroccan resort they were at. And so she just like stays at the resort long. And there's another instance where a friend invites her onto a yacht and she just like camps out on the yacht for a month after everyone else has left. And so when Opal was just camping out in Paris after the whole reason she had been there no longer existed, I was like, this is just sad. This is sad. Like it was giving very pitiful. It's like all your friends went home, girl. And it wasn't even that she was doing anything at first. Like eventually she did start to like try and write some music, which I thought was weird because that had never really been an interest for her, even though at that point she had been a successful allegedly like musician or whatever. But she hadn't really, I mean, I guess she gave Nev the inspiration for their little "Who's the Nigger Now" song, which it's still weird that she didn't have no songwriter credit on that, and it was still all credited to that little white boy. I feel like I don't know. I feel like woke Twitter would have dragged him over the coals for that. Even without that little sad, raggedy concert at the end, which I do think also was I think that the concert that is happening at the end of the book was a little bit on the nose. Like, I do think it was a little bit on the nose to have this scene be such a clear echo of the scene where Sunny's father was murdered by that little biker gang, where it's like you are willing, like someone comes to you, Opal, and is like, yeah, that man most likely killed my father so he could play an acoustic guitar. Like, that's the other thing about the book is like Neville is a raggedy little bitch boy who sees white supremacists in the front row of this little showcase in 1970 whatever, 1960 whatever, and is like, these howling white supremacists really want to see me with my acoustic guitar and my darky sidekick come out onto the stage, and they want to see us sing. And it's like, why would you think that? Why in your coked out head would you think that the white supremacists in the front row of this concert hall are looking to you, Nev, to sing them a little doo-wop on your little acoustic yellow wood guitar? That thought process don't make sense to me. And then at the end of the book, a full 50 years later, when you already know that at least one journalist has come to your publicist and is like, I know what you did 40 years ago. I'm calling your number. I'm going to, then not only do I know what you did, I have definitely caused a scene with people that you know. So the likelihood of me telling other people that I know what you did is high. And I could tell other people that you are a raggedy old man who is low key, high key a racist. So when at the next high profile concert of your twilighting career, which also didn't make no sense. Like, I don't understand how this man was supposed to be so great and so iconic, and he has all kinds of Grammy nominations and platinum records this and gold records this and triple like I don't know if people are going to be like, you're getting compared to the Elton Johns of the world, the Bob Dylans of the world. I don't know if I would call these people twilighting. I don't know if I would. I don't listen to their records. I don't listen to their music. I don't really care what they're coming out with. But like, don't know if I would call them twilighting. Pretty sure Elton John was literally just on the little Nas album. Wasn't a good song. Was not good at all. But he was there. Like, I don't know if I would call the man twilighting. Anyway, for this to happen, and you can see that this black girl is getting brutalized by the security, and you're just gonna look back at your band and be like, keep playing, keep playing. I'm gonna sing on my little ballad. And it's like, sir, if your ballad couldn't soothe the white supremacy of 1970 something, I don't think your little ballad is gonna soothe the white supremacy of 2016. And part of me wishes that we could have gotten like more into that mindset, because I'm curious. But also it's like Opal's mindset of the same thing is like, why did you ever think this was a good idea? Like, being with Nev was good in the sense that without him, she clearly wouldn't have succeeded. But I also think that it was very clear that without Opal, very delusional. I mean, I think even in America, Elton John is like, people would still say they like Elton John. I don't think people really run around in the streets being like Elton John is a has been a washed up, like, nobody. Like, who was saying that? So, but apparently Nev is the washed up Elton John, but okay. Sure. It's just like, but it was also clear that without Opal, Nev was never going to be good, which I think is another reason that I'm just like, could you explain to me how, except for the fact that this is a novel and so we need to create some kind of tension, if the man who was writing these little sad ballads that no one cared about before is going to go back to writing sad ballads that nobody cares about, why do they care about them now? You know what I mean? It's not like Elton John was in a very successful position and he said, okay, I'm going to be solo, and it was very successful. But it wasn't like there's this, maybe there is a document. Maybe I need to go onto Wikipedia and see. Maybe Elton John also put out two sad little doo-woppy acoustic guitar strumming situations and nobody cared about it. But I feel like that's not like I feel like that's not what happened to him. Maybe it is. Maybe that is what happened to Mr. John. I don't know his life. But I felt that a soft DNF, it wasn't vibing, chalk it up to when you were reading it. I am shook, shocked, and shaken. Not a soft DNF, because I still like, even the second time I was like, this is a good book. I do think that it does help that I've been reading a lot of fantasy, and so this was a welcome relief from all of the fantasy that I need to read, even though I have to immediately go back to the fantasy, because I'm hoping to have that that vlog up by Saturday for my patrons, because they've been waiting for too long. But I can't imagine DNFing. I read, like, the first time I read it, it was an arc. So to get through that little sad formatting, I had to love it. And even to get through the audiobook, because I don't know how y'all do the little full cast narration thing. Don't know how y'all do it. Love it for the culture. It was not for me. I found it to be yeah. But it was to me the story is still good, except for the fact that I do wish it was longer. And I do wish that we could have had more editor's notes where we got to see Sunny. I mean, we already got more than I remembered, but I really wanted to see Sunny kind of dissecting and going into the things that were getting revealed in this sort of like pseudo like this little, it was supposed to be a book, and I feel like I really wanted was like a critical lens on these things, and at times there was a critical lens, particularly after the revelation that Nev had such a pivotal role in the death of her father. I was like, okay, the critical lens is kind of coming in, but it was never critical enough. I definitely wanted it to be more critical, not only of Nev, but of like the entire situation. I will say that Rosemary, the little secretary lady, I liked her little interjections. I felt that they added uh if of all the side characters in the story of Opal and Nev, um hers was the only one I cared about. I've never heard of such a thing, and I don't want to know. I'm happy that they exist for people who need it, I guess. You like the writing, but the story itself was not hitting. Wow. Yeah, she was the only little side character I cared about. Like of all the people, of all of like the Bobby Heises of the world, and the what was his name? The little owner of Rivington Records. That man, Howie. I think his name is Howie, right? I did not care about that man, Mr. Howard, whatever his last name was. That man needed to. He needed to. Like I appreciate like the Chet Bonds of the world, the little Bond brothers. They were horrible people. They were very clearly racists, and they refused to recognize their racism. But at least Chet like understood that like whatever, even if he wasn't calling himself a racist, he was gonna say that he was responsible for something. But Howie was out here in this little interview talking about all of these things as though Opal was the most high maintenance, requesting all of this bullshit. And I was just like, but you're not. I feel here's the thing to me. If one of my artists in this duo was getting strung out on heroin, cocaine, snorting meth, like doing all this crazy bullshit to the point where he had to be forcibly rehabilitated twice in a calendar year, the artist that is literally just sitting in France, which again was real sad, just outstaying her welcome over there. She's like the person I'm not mad at. I'm definitely going to be mad at the person who is over here in rehab twice. And then it wasn't even like, okay, Nev came out of rehab and was trying to write music that sold. Nev already had a solo album at Rivington Records, and that solo album of his little doo-woppy, strumming acoustic guitar bullshit didn't sell. Like that was the whole reason that they brought on Opal. And so the idea that this man was just like going to be the head of this music company and saw that those little records weren't selling, and then he was going to turn around and be like Opal was requesting this weirdness, but it's like you're literally letting Nev write music that he was just doing a year ago, or well, I guess at that point it was like 3 years ago. Like 3 years ago this man was trying to put out the same bullshit and it didn't work. That's the whole reason that you sent this man on a nationwide tour trying to find literally anybody, a a human body to stand next to him. So it's like, what? I could understand if like Nev had tried to like make the same kind of music that the Bond brothers were making, because that was Howie's big thing. Howie wanted everybody to make the Bond brothers music, but he wasn't even doing that. It was more of these little like, I'm Ed Sheeran, I just write sad white people music. And it's just like, okay, you can write that, but Mr. Rivington Records already know that this doesn't sell. So that man, I also felt like needed a lot of the characters, especially told in this format, needed to be more. They needed to be more than they were, which is maybe not fair of me to say. This part, like, like, I think that this was more of like a broad strokes thing where it's like, this is what happens. And yes, I believe it. I understand that this is what happens. But I felt that we needed better examples. Like, because Howie, his specifically in this interview format, his character needed something more, which is why I do think that the book could have been longer. But I don't think that I don't know if we needed to change the format necessarily. I do think that if a change in format would have helped. It definitely would have made some of these things clearer. It would have relieved some of these issues that I specifically was having. But I was just like, that thought process literally doesn't make any sense. And so we had to go from that thought process to Opal immediately shutting it down, which I did like, and Rosemary calling bullshit. But also Rosemary, especially at that juncture of the narrative, was really playing both sides of the fence. And I was just like, Rosemary, you can't play both sides of the fence here. Like, at this juncture, right here on this day at this time, you have to pick a lane. You can't have it both ways. Can't have it your way. Like, you can't say yes, they're overreacting, but you needed to play nice or whatever. Because I do think that Opal was playing nice. I do think that she was, because even before she went to Paris, they weren't really working on another album. They just weren't. And it wasn't and I think that's a little bit fine. I mean, their drummer was literally murdered in front of them. Even if you take out the part where it was Nev's fault, all of it entirely was, because of Mr. Nev. Even if you take that part out of it, the idea that they needed to just immediately start making songs again and this, that, and the third, it was just weird. It was weird. Even I felt that some of the discussions that Bobby was having, like when Bobby was describing how um Nev low key, maybe if you like squint, admitted to his role. I thought that was a weird conversation. Um, it definitely was a kind of conversation that you can only have looking back at the event. And while the narrative did kind of stop to look at it a little bit, I feel like we could have spent some more time there. Like I said, there were definitely some times that we could have spent more. Um, and I feel like the scene that we spent the most time at wasn't even the Rivington showcase, but it was the concert at the end of the book, where again I felt that concert was a little bit on the nose, a little bit on the nose for me particularly. I feel that we could have maybe not done that. We could have had something a little more subtle, something that didn't, especially in an adult book. Like in a YA book, I could understand, oh, this character happened, like this happened in their life. And so at the end of the book, in the third act, I'm going to do a complete mirror image of that scene, only we're going to see it and not in catastrophe, because we get to see that girl who was, roughed up by the security. She ultimately gets a job with Opal, and she gets to like be alive and not murdered on camera, but you still get another like really striking visual for Opal. So you do love to see it, but also I feel like while the open-endedness of the book is nice, I do kind of wish we had I do ultimately feel like there's not a lot of closure. I do feel unsatisfied with how things ended. I feel like Nev, I needed to have more consequences for his actions, because even if you weren't gonna have like consequences for the actions that happened at the showcase, I feel like there were definite consequences that he could have had for what happened at the end of the book at that specific concert. Because while it was just the one girl getting roughed up by security or whatever, at this point, maybe it's not fair in like a 2021 or a 2022 world because it came out in a 2021 world. It was written in a 2020 whatever world. Um, I feel like it's not quite to the level of a Travis Scott incident in Astro World, what happened at the end of the book, but it's like Mr. Travis was attacked by the media, and I feel like we could have had Mr. Nev get attacked. He was briefly canceled on Twitter for I think we learned that in like one of the footnotes. But I feel like it was, and they play the little segment on the news or whatever, and again, one of the little footnotes. But the man clearly acknowledged that this was happening, and I think that um because it was such a obvious mirror to something that had already happened in the character's life, I feel like having other characters seem to like question it would have been fine. Um, Fine. It didn't have to just be Opal. Like, I don't know. That's my official statement at that little diner. Also, before we go, because I do think I'm gonna start wrapping this up soon. Virgil, loved him. Loved him when I read it the first time. Loved him the second time. I would love to read a book about Virgil. I don't think I'm ever gonna get that book, but I would read it. But even even there, it's kind of like these people not fucking with Nev isn't enough for me. I need everyone not to fuck with Nev. So while I did have some issues with the book, I still had a great time with the story. And so I'm willing to overlook some of the things that I wished had been addressed more in depth, a little bit more concretely. But I did have a good time. I did have a good time. And maybe it's because, I already knew where things were going. Yes, I second this opinion. Like I need that man to never thrive again. I would say I would love a book like The Downfall of Nev, but he don't need to have any more page time. Give me I would say give me an Opal follow-up, but again, I don't think I'm ever gonna get that. So I'm just gonna imagine one for myself. And that's just how I'm gonna get through the rest of my life, knowing that Opal got to go on. And I don't know. I don't know. I just can't get over how that woman like literally had to fade into obscurity, and this man just miraculously through some like sheer power of Donnie Walton's pen and click clacking on her keyboard, this man succeeded. And like I get it, I understand, I get like I do get it, but I also don't. So that's the complicated intersection that I find myself existing in. But with that, I think that I'm going to end this here unless there's anything else. Yes. In my head, Opal and Virgil are definitely thriving. Virgil is definitely I hate that even Virgil, like the part of me that kills me about Virgil's story is that when Miss Opal comes back, he sounds like he's still going to do what he's been doing, but then he doesn't keep doing what he was doing before Opal. And so she just kind of like he just opens a consignment shop and lives an average life and doesn't get to be anybody else's. I don't know. Like his storyline also doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I definitely think that he could have styled other people. But it's also, I don't know. Next, March's book, if I'm remembering correctly from the announcement, is The Unraveling of Cassidy Holmes, which is technically another book about musicians, but it's different. I promise. I promise. You could have done without Nev. See, I I tend to agree. Like I think that would the twist of Neville sort of orchestrated this event that happened, would that like hit as deeply as it would without him? I don't think that it would. I don't think that it would. Like, he's not interesting, and it's not entertaining that he didn't suffer any consequences. But I also like I do see why. Like I understand like why he doesn't, but I don't think that like as much as I want to get rid of him, I guess we were stuck. Listen, okay? They are different. They are in this one. In this one, um, it's a girl group, and some of the chapters have nothing to do with them being musicians. Because you get two timelines: the timeline where Cassidy is alive, and those are the musician chapters. And then you have a timeline where Cassidy has passed away, and the rest of her girl group members are dealing with the fallout of her no longer being alive. And at that point, they're not musicians. Like one of them is still famous, and I think the other two live relatively normal lives. It's been a while, not gonna lie. So only half of this book is about musicianhood. So it's a little different. It's a tiny bit. I mean, it's not a K-pop group, but it's a girl group. They sing pop music. One of them is Asian. So, it's good. It's good. Just attempt, make the attempt. I have faith in you. But like I said, unless there's anything else you guys would like to talk about, whether it's about next month's book or this month's book, I feel like I've said everything I need to say about Miss Opal and Miss Nev. Well, I guess technically it's Mr. Nev. Technically, if we're being polite. Again, I have faith that you will enjoy. Maybe. If nothing else, it can't be. I mean, I have read this one, so I already know I don't feel this way. But it can't be any worse than when we read Of Curses and Kisses, and it can't be any worse than when we read Grown. That book still haunts me in my spirit. So yeah, this is going to be this month's pick. This one I think is around the same page length. Let me see here. Yes. Oh, it's a little bit longer. This one's 419 pages. So I'm going to try and read this before the live show again, but maybe not like right before the every time I pick a book for the book club, I'm like, it can't be any worse than Of Curses and Kisses. That's like the bottom. Like even Grown was better than Of Curses and Kisses. I try, I'm trying never to hit those lows of Curses and Kisses. I'm trying super duper real hard to never strike that bottom, because I hate it here. I hate it here. I hate that I put you all through that. But I'm happy that it seems like for most of us, this one over here, Miss Opal and Nev, was a banger. So I'm happy for us on that note. And with that, I'm going to go so you guys can enjoy the rest of your Friday evening. Thanks for spending some of it with me. I'll see all of you guys again soon. Well, I have maybe soon with a regular video. Maybe. We're trying to get through a vlog project that I can actually show the people. But I'll see all of you at the beginning of next month, where we will talk about this one. But until then, and until next time, bye. Thanks again for coming out.